Across the module, I've used one word in almost every sentence: baseline. Requirements are measured against the baseline. The closed-loop change process updates the baseline. Conformance means matching the baseline. It's the quiet word underneath everything, and almost nobody defines it properly. So this episode fixes that. What a baseline actually is, why it's the thing that lets you reproduce and certify your product, and how a small team keeps it disciplined without a huge process. Get this right, and Module 2 clicks into place. Get it wrong, and none of the rest holds.
Digital transformation time. Digital transformation time.
Two promises. If you're a founder, you'll understand why "we have all the files" is not the same as "we can reproduce our product," and why the gap is an existential risk in regulated work. If you're a tech lead, you'll get a practical sense of how to set and hold baselines so that on any day you can answer "what exactly did we build?" against which approved version, and who signed it off. I learned this the hard way, in a program where a product was built, flew, and then couldn't be reliably rebuilt on another site. The difference between those two states is baseline discipline. Let's define it plainly. A baseline is a fixed, agreed snapshot of your product's definition at a moment in time. The requirements, the design, the BOM, the documents, frozen and approved as a known good reference. Think of it like a save point in a game. Everything keeps moving afterwards, but you have a point you can always return to and say, "This exact configuration was agreed, also reviewed, and correct." Without save points, you're playing a game you can never reload. And in engineering, that means you can never prove what correct was. The key word is frozen. A baseline isn't your latest files. Those are always moving. A baseline is a deliberate stake in the ground. As of this approval, this is the definition. Changes after that don't quietly overtime it. They create the next baseline through the closed loop we covered last episode. That's why baselines and change control are two halves of one thing. The baseline is the noun, change control is the verb. Here's the illusion that sinks companies. We don't need formal baselines. All our files are saved. Saved files feels like safety. They are not a baseline. Let me show you why. A shared drive full of files tells you what exists. It does not tell you which version was approved, what they were approved against, who approved them, or which set actually goes together as a coherent, buildable configuration. A folder is a pile. A baseline is a frozen, approved, internally consistent set. The difference is invisible on a normal day and catastrophic on the day it matters. Picture it concretely. You built something 6 months ago. Now you need to rebuild it. A second site, a customer order, a failure investigation. You open the drive. There are 5 versions of the key drawing. 3 have edits with no dates. The change that mattered was approved in an email that's now buried. The person who knew is gone. Every file is present. You still cannot reconstruct what you actually built. That's not a missing files problem. It's a missing baseline problem. And no amount of storage fixes it. The discipline behind this has a formal home. In configuration management, the foundational activity is configuration identification, setting and maintaining baselines that define the system at any point in time. so changes can be identified, documented, and tracked across the whole life cycle. That's the backbone of standards like ISO 10007 and the systems engineering body of work. What I'm translating for you is the startup size version. You don't need the full defense contractor apparatus. You need the principle: deliberate, approved, frozen reference points, applied with a discipline by a small team. The principle is non-negotiable. The bureaucracy around it is optional. You need the principle: deliberate, approved, frozen reference points, applied with discipline by a small team. The principle is non-negotiable. The bureaucracy around it is optional. So how does a three-person team keep a real baseline discipline without drowning? Four practical rules. 1. Baseline at meaningful moments, not constantly. You don't freeze everything every day. That's noise. You set a baseline at points that matter. A design review passed, a prototype release to build, a configuration shipped. Each one is a deliberate, this is a grid. Few clear, meaningful save points beat 1,000 autosaves nobody trusts. 2. A baseline isn't real until it's approved and owned. Storing a snapshot isn't baselining. Anyone can copy a folder. A baseline carries a decision. Someone with authority said, "This set is correct as of now," and that approval is recorded with their name and the date. No owner, no approval, no baseline. Just files with ambition. No owner, no approval, no baseline, just files with ambition. 3. A baseline is internally consistent. The requirements, the design, the BOM, and in a baseline all describe the same product. If your drawing says one thing and your BOM says another, you don't have a baseline. You have a contradiction you'll discover at the worst time. Consistency is the whole point, is the set that goes together. 4. Every change is from and baseline. 4. Every change is from baseline and to a baseline. This connects straight back to last episode's closed loop. A change isn't floating. It modifies a known starting baseline and produces a known next one. Do this and you get something powerful almost for free. At any moment, you can trace the full history of how your product's definition evolved, save point by save point. That's reconstructability. That's what an auditor, a second sight, and a failure investigation all need. Founder takeaway. And it's blunt. "We have all the files" is the sentence that precedes a disaster in regulated work. Saved is not the same as reproducible. The one standard worth enforcing early, before you have a big team, before it's painful to introduce, is that every product configuration you really care about gets a deliberate, approved, frozen baseline. It costs you almost nothing now. It saves you a program later. And that closes Module 2. Pull the three episodes together. Requirements are your control system, the definition of correct. Change control is how you evolve the definition without losing control, the closed loop. And baselines are the frozen, approved reference points the whole thing pivots on. What lets you reproduce and prove your product. Requirements, change, baseline. That's configuration control. Sys for a team that can't afford an army. With this in place, your product is reconstructable by design. And that is what makes certification possible. In the next module, we connect all of this across your systems: ALM, PLM, ERP, and MES. So the control we just built doesn't stop at one tool. I'll see you there. Recap. A baseline is a frozen, approved, consistent snapshot of your product's definition, a safe point you can always return to. A folder of files is not a baseline. It tells you what exists, not what was built or approved. A small team holds discipline with four rules: baseline at meaningful moments, approve and own it, keep it internally consistent, and run every change from one baseline to the next. Do that, and your product becomes reproducible and certifiable by design. If this module reframed how you see your own engineering data, subscribe. Next, we connect it all across your systems. And be honest in the comments. If you had to rebuild your main product today from your current records, could you? That answer is the most important one in this whole module.
Digital transformation time. Digital transformation time.